Good afternoon, my name is Tom Vasquez and this is my final class project for MSM 525, the Spirit of Enterprise course. And in my 5-minute video, I will go over some of the spiritual principles and guidelines that we've covered in class to help us gain a deeper understanding of a case we covered in class, a case of Phil Purcell and Morgan Stanley. So first, a quick story on it. Of course, the story of Morgan Stanley and Phil Purcell is of a merger between Morgan Stanley and Dean Witter, where they came together to form a Goliath on Wall Street with a great promising future. However, and this is true of many mergers and acquisitions, what wound up happening is the creation of what you call subcultures that usually go underneath, happen within the workforce underneath top leadership. But in this case, it went all the way to the top. And so you had some guys on the Dean Witter side trying to hold on to the way they used to do business, and then the Morgan Stanley guys standing by their way of doing business, and you experience what I call an office Game of Thrones scenario, where they're jockeying for power and rivalries are festered, and it's a very destructive thing. The reason this one stood out to me, of all the case studies we had, is because I've experienced something like this personally in my professional career. And so I wanted to take a deeper understanding into how this happens, why this happens, from a spiritual perspective. And a social teaching perspective, and then maybe find ways to prevent them from happening. And if you find yourself in the unfortunate scenario of experiencing this, maybe some ways to kind of get out of it. And so what happens typically when this goes down? Basically three things. You're going to lose your talent. When you start going through these Game of Thrones scenarios in a company, you're going to lose your talent because people that can leave will leave. It's not worth it to them, and that has a detrimental effect on the future. Also, you're going to get a fractured workforce. You know, Stephen Covey put out his book, The Speed of Trust. And in there he presented a trust ratio where he says if you have high trust, speed of work goes up and your costs go down. However, if you have lower trust, things take longer to get done and your costs go higher. So obviously you have incurred costs there that you're experiencing unbeknownst to you because you don't have lack of trust. And of course, loss of revenue and missed opportunities because your business is not functioning as efficiently as it can. Okay, so what are some of the spiritual teachings that illuminate us as we consider this story? And the first one comes from the 3rd chapter of Mark's Gospel, where our Lord speaks the axiom itself, where he says, a house divided against itself cannot stand. The principle there is that unity is a sign of God. Unity brings the goodness of having God's presence with you. So it should be something that we seek and we apply all our leadership and talents when we're in the position of leadership to attain and preserve. That should drive a lot of our decision making. Also, of course, our Catholic social teaching gives us the basic 4 elements that can be applied, and if applied correctly, we'll never see this to fruition. So, for example, the first element begins with the human dignity, based upon the principle of the Imago Dei, meaning every person is entitled to special consideration and worthy of the highest respect. We didn't see that in the Phil Purcell case. Also, the common good, where if properly applied, the attitude should be, we work together as a symphony. Everybody has a place here that should be fostered, and when put together, it plays beautiful music like a symphony. Not happening here with the Phil Purcell case. Of course, the next one is solidarity. And this is where, especially, it comes from the leaders up top. They got to foster the spirit of brotherhood and fraternity by which we're bonded together. And, of course, the last element of subsidiarity, where there's a healthy detachment from those of the higher order, in this case at the CEO level, where they should detach themselves from the problems associated at the lower level, not in a sense that they don't care, but one that they can assist and empower the lower order to work through the problems themselves. And here's the kicker: grow from it and become better from it. Okay. The other spiritual principles called by best captured here on human work, the encyclical on human work, Laborem Exercens. This comes from John Paul II, the great John Paul II. And one of the principles that's laced throughout the work here is this one. And it says, the primacy of man over things. So power, money, and these type of things and positions should be put at the service of men, at the service of the company, not the other way around. Putting people that are loyal to me in positions and all these other things skew our calculus. These are the spiritual underpinnings covered in this course that apply itself directly to this case, and we could see where not applying them, or even just applying one of them, could have prevented a lot of the damage we saw here. So I'll take this case with me as I go forward, and I feel a lot smarter about this scenario, a lot closer to the teachings of the Catholic Church and understanding how we can foster good business. And again, I'm ready. It empowers me to face on some of the more difficult aspects of a vocation in business life, knowing now what these spiritual guidelines and principles are. Thank you.